Hello, everyone. I'm Ray Shows, director and founder of the St. Paul String Quartet competition, now in its 20th year here in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I'm delighted to be in the same space as Shulamit Ran, well-known, renowned composer of not only symphonies and operas and other things that she's written, but primarily it's the string quartets that we're interested in today. And one of her quartets, the third quartet, will be featured on April 26th at the competition finals for the senior division. These are the college and pre-professional quartets. And welcome, Shulamit, to the Zoom meeting. Glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Shulamit, I would like to talk briefly on your inspiration about the third string quartet. Could I ask you, how did Felix Nussbaum's art and story first draw you in as a composer?
All right. Well, I think that the really important point of entry was when Pacifica, with whom I've had prior association for a good few years, they were artists in residence at the University of Chicago, where I taught for many decades. And they were artists in residence also specifically with Contempo, the contemporary chamber players of the University of Chicago, of which I was artistic director for a dozen years. So I came to know them very, very well and came to know their playing very well. And when they first talked to me about this commission, they said, but we have a special request for you. We are really interested in having a quartet that would in some way relate to a work of visual arts or to an artist. And so that was the first trigger. And I said to them, well, this is a very broad topic, of course. Do you have any particular period in mind? And they said, as a matter of fact, we do. And they expressed interest in art that was created at some point in the earlier part of the 20th century, perhaps between the two world wars. And that somehow really sort of got me to thinking about work that was created during or prior, in some way relating to work by artists who created during the Holocaust.
So there are aspects of his work, I guess, or life that are resonating with you musically or personally?
It resonated with me personally. And actually, at that point, I was not familiar with the name or the work of Felix Nussbaum. What happened next was that almost immediately after having that particular conversation with Pacifica, where they zeroed in on something that they would be interested in touching in this work, visual arts, I left actually for 3 months to Rome. I was in residence at the American Academy in Rome. And one of the wonderful things about the American Academy in Rome is that you meet and associate with various people in various arts and in various disciplines. And one of the people that I met there, his name is Albert Albano, and he is an art preservation specialist, an art conservation specialist, and we had many interesting conversations. And at a certain point, I told him about this particular project, and I said, I'm really thinking about if there's some way for me to learn more about visual arts that were created during that time. And he was actually the first one who mentioned the name Felix Nussbaum to me. And I, of course, today it's so easy to find by going online about works of really just about anyone, no matter what their field is. And as soon as I saw some of his artwork, I was deeply moved by that, and thought to myself, okay, this could be very interesting to walk around his art. But eventually, I have to say, it wasn't so much the art, but the whole thinking about what it would mean to lead a seemingly normal life with, you know, the ups and downs and the ordinary life. Sometimes we come to appreciate the ordinary life only when it's taken away from us. The ordinary day-to-day, the sweet things that happened, and I thought myself what it would be like to have that come to a horrific rupture, and because in his case, he spent, he died shortly before his 40th birthday in concentration camp, and he spent the last decade of his life fleeing and hiding and really leading a horrific life, because he understood that life was never going to be the same, and that he was really in a situation, because of being Jewish, that he would perhaps not survive. And of course, he didn't. So it was that sense of the impending.
That's very, very specific and very pointed and clear to us, actually. Probably not so clear to him back then, but then all of a sudden it was.
Yes, all of a sudden it was, yeah. And for example, the third movement, the title of the third movement, it's not the one that is being, that's part of the competition, but the third movement is a quote by Felix Nussbaum: "If I must perish, do not let my paintings die." So obviously he knew, and that movement is really the sort of the point of culmination of complete, really when it's all coming to a head musically and also in terms of his life. So yeah, so you know, I'd written other works, a few other works that had the Holocaust at their center, really from an early point in my life. It's a subject that I thought about a great deal and wanted through my art to say never again, and to express that sense, you know, we will never know not only what these 6 million people who died, and of course there were many more millions of people who were not Jewish who also perished in the Holocaust, so many minority groups, and it was absolutely the most incredible, unbelievable disaster of humanity. But thinking about my people, the 6 million people, we will never know everything that was lost, not only through them, but what it would have led by a way of great inventions, great literature, great, and just ordinary people. Whose lives were cut short, and the generations that would have come after them wouldn't. So it's a topic that I thought about at various times, and in a few situations where I was commissioned to write works of various types of ensembles, and for various reasons my thinking became focused on that. For example, I'll give you a completely different example. I was commissioned by Chanticleer, who is the 12-person all-male choir based in the Bay Area in San Francisco, but being SATB, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. They commissioned me for work that was going to be a part of a mass. And I was commissioned to write the credo of the Mass. And when they came to me with that idea, I said to them, but you realize, of course, I mean, what does the Mass mean? What does the credo mean? And the music director of Chanticleer at the time, Joe Jennings, he said, well, the credo is at the heart of the Catholic faith. And I said to him, you understand, of course, that being Jewish, I'm not going to write it from your point of view, but from a different point of view, my point of view. I don't know yet what it will be, but it will come from a different direction. And he said, that's fine. We assumed as much. And so I wrote a work that dealt with faith under the worst kind of circumstances. How can you say, I believe, when you are faced potentially with death? And so I've come to this topic at different times and in different ways. So this is, to go back now to the string quartet, this is how it came to be the way that it is. From just saying, well, write something that is related to a work of art or a painter or sculptor, and this leading me through the historical period that they were thinking of, the particular decades of the 20th century that led me to this.
Well, let me swing over to back to Nussbaum for just a minute here. Are there specific sonic images or gestures that you feel capture the essence of his art or emotional world?
Well, you know, we can probably, it will be really meaningful if you find a way, it should be simple enough to zero in on a few of his works of art and include it in the information that you will be sending out to the string quartets who will be playing my movement for my quartet, because I think it will be very meaningful to them. The most well-known of these is of a portrait of a self-portrait of his holding with a yellow star, which was, of course, what the Nazis demanded that every Jew put on every piece of clothing, with a passport of his that said, a Jew. That's a very, very powerful piece of art. There are also works that show there, in a way, a kind of a very large vision of what war does.
How should the players approach the quote glitter moments? Are they hopeful, ironic, defiant?
Well, you know, I should first of all explain that my quartet is not directly describing the title. The title came about, actually, it was in that same early conversation that I had about the whole period and thinking about this, that I became aware of an exhibit that the Metropolitan Museum had it was actually in 2006-07, called Glitter and Doom, German Portraits from the 1920s. And I thought to myself, Nussbaum would have been a little bit too young to be shown in that exhibit. He created most of his work in about a decade later. But I thought to myself, okay, that's a very evocative title. I must say, this is the first time in my life that I gave a work of mine a title before writing a single note down. I come to my titles about 5/6 of the way through composing, that suddenly something hits and I'll say, okay, that title captures an image of what I'm trying to say musically. But here I thought to myself, glitter, doom, and I immediately thought shards, memory. That was my addition to this, because I thought of this progression from a great excitement, which isn't, I mean, the piece is not about great excitement, but taking that title, Glitter and Doom, as two opposing forces. And my piece is about the opposition of life and normalcy on the one hand, with the worst kind of events on the other hand. And I thought to myself, shards, the breaking of everything, the rupturing of everything, and memory.
That's beautifully described on the piece. Let me change direction here just a little bit, not much, but on what I call ensemble dynamics. Shulamit, are there moments where the quartet should feel like four individuals in tension, or more like singular entity expressing like a shared voice?
Well, I mean, the beauty of a string quartet is that on the one hand, it has this homogeneous sound, okay? You are dealing with four instruments, three instruments, but yes, four, yes, it's four-pronged. And there is great unity of sound. Unlike, for example, if I take, for example, a woodwind quintet, these are five totally different personalities, the instruments of a woodwind quintet, so that the potential for very, very different musical personality is built into the ensemble. Not so with the string quartet. However, as we all know, there is such an opportunity for counterpoint, for branching off, for blending together, for the greatest multitude of ways of handling that instrument of the string quartet. And I think my piece does both. I think there are areas where it's a unified, singular voice, and there are many, many areas where it splinters off into, everybody does their thing.
Let me run into the next question, which is very similar to where you're starting to answer. So this piece, as you have mentioned, clearly holds deep emotional and historical weight. How do you want the quartets to balance that responsibility with the quartet's personal artistic interpretation? How would you like to see that, or do you have a preference?
Well, I'm not sure whether I will actually answer your question, but from my perspective, first of all, I'm thrilled at the thought that there will be four young quartets, obviously 16 people of extraordinary gifts who will be performing, playing my piece, because I know that it will be four different interpretations, and that's wonderful. I love the idea. I notate my music very carefully. It's not just pitch and rhythm. It's also, I always have all sorts of words to try to sort of open up a a window into the kind of expression that I'm looking for in a piece. So that there are all sorts of things that describe things here from, I'm opening one page, for example, in the score, and it says, faster feel with growing intensity. And then there's with mystery, suddenly ferocious, brilliant, active, and this is only on one page.
You must be a fan of Gustav Mahler.
I am, but I think there is so much. Oh, I just turned over to another page. Growling, and in parentheses, dig deep, almost to the point of distortion. So I'm trying to give as much information as I can about what I'm envisioning. At the same time, I write all of this down very precisely, but it's only a blueprint. It's a blueprint for the individual performers, the individual ensembles to take off from, so that I fully anticipate different approaches to what I'm doing. Okay? So I try with my music and with my notation to give an indication to the quartets of emotionally what this piece is about. It's first of all about the music. You know, I mean, a string quartet is, so many of us think about it as sort of the most abstract kind of musical expression. And here I am composing a piece that is at one level about something. But I see it as not being contradictory because it's parallel to one another. It's first of all pure music, whatever that means. But at the same time, yes, it also has parallel to it an existence that brings you into a world that is about something.
I have to ask you, what has surprised you about past performances of this piece, either musically or emotionally? Because I know you said that the Pacifica has played it. Perhaps many others have played this quartet. I would hope so. But has anything surprised you, or what stories would you tell to your audience here?
Well, you know, I would simply say that I've been surprised at how different quartets, and at times not even for people who are themselves a quartet, but who, because of a festival or because of being in school, have put themselves together, or their teacher would put them together to play this music. And I'm surprised at how people seem to understand and put forth performances that are very telling and very moving. So in a way, it surprises me how little I have to really explain, I guess, something about the music.
Well, I think your clarity in the score, again, I have not performed it. We have the score. It's going to be on our repertoire very soon. We haven't actually walked the walk on it, but from your conversation, I would imagine there's a lot of instruction about what's going to go through the piece. And I think that clarity perhaps is giving performers a leg up, a step up, to start advancing, kind of like what Bernstein discovered when he took when he conducted the Vienna Opera back in Vienna Philharmonic, when he first went back and they were just playing the notes and complaining that this was Jewish music, why should we play it? And he read them the Riot Act, and he said, no, we need to play what's on the score here, and made them toe the line, and they gained from it, and he gained from it, and all of humanity gained from that kind of work. And so I think your clarity and your belief and your storyline with this is so compelling. It certainly drew me into it. having heard this, I thought, wow, this would be. Let me see if this movement would be appropriate for young people, and that's when I called Pacifica and asked, and they directed me. They thought the first movement would be the best place to start on this, even though your second movement is so much fun.
But I'm so glad that the quartets will be doing the first movement.
Yes,
The
I am
first
too.
movement is sort of, it sets you on the journey that is about to be undertaken. And it also has great contrast. So, from the most sweet and seemingly ordinary. And I can tell you this, as a composer, it's not easy to write ordinary music that will not sound banal. I've never set out to write something that will speak to the ordinary. And yet, in this case, I decided this is what I'm going to do, but it's got to be precious. It's got to be so that it will not be. There's a difference between simple and simplistic. And I wasn't interested in simplistic, but I wanted the opening to be very simple. But then it gets to the climax, which is, it begins at, if anyone is interested, measure 74, where there is this rupture, and it's almost the sound of expressed through the strings, almost like sirens in a way. The first movement really, if one is going to do one movement, that is the movement I would have preferred.
If you could give one piece of advice to the quartet premiering this for a new audience, what would it be, Shulamit?
It's a tough one. I mean, it's essentially learn the notes, learn everything that's there, pay close attention to the various adjectives that appear here, that direct you, that open a window to the emotional world that I'm seeking in the performance, and then take off.